first. First things first, who in this room, in this Zoom room, identifies as a speaker? I'd like you to raise your hand virtually or physically. Okay. So keep your hands up. Keep your hands up. I can see them coming down. Every single one of you is also a writer. Everyone with their hands up is also a writer, whether you feel like one or not. You can put your hands down. So, because if you want to be a speaker, you need to identify as a writer as well, it makes absolute sense to enhance your existing writing skills, whatever they might be right now. Now, I can hear the voice in your head, even though we're distanced. The voice in your head is going, okay, she says I'm a writer, fine, but I'm not an amazing writer, or I could be a better writer, or I'm not a good writer at all. Trust me, I get it. I get it. That's what we hear in our heads. The voice in my head constantly reminds me that I'm not a 6 foot a blonde in her 20s. Okay, I'm a 4.5 foot gray-haired woman in her 40s. But writing is different for speakers. Because not feeling like a writer doesn't change the fact, quite simply, that you are one. I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you in my talk. I get that writing can often feel like pulling teeth, except that you are the dentist and the patient at the same time. So let's look at how to transform your insights into income without pain. What do I mean by insights? I mean that as a speaker, you're already sitting on a lot of collateral. Whether that collateral is keynote talks, speeches, drafts of speeches, or even stolen bits of other people's speeches that you heard and you thought it was cool, so you wrote it down in a notebook and looking for some way to use it. That collateral is audition material, which is also what I call article material. So a lot of the stuff that you are holding onto in your folders and files and notebooks, that stuff is potential article, and a potential article is a potential paid gig. Now, I'm Tiffany Markman, and most of what you need to know about me, Mandy has already told you. Whatever else you may want to know, you can just Google me. You'll find everything, even the stuff I potentially don't want you to see. Except for this. This is what you may not know, which is why I'm going to tell you. I've spent the last 20 years getting paid to write, teach writing, or speak about writing. And I'm going to give you my 5 best tips for writing articles that bring in more paid work. So as speakers, we know that there is a lot of free work that we do, and a lot of that free work is important and yields all sorts of opportunities. But I'm going to give you 5 tips for writing articles that bring in paid gigs. And the 5 tips, just to give you a summary, are these. Push. By this, I mean push value, not self-promotion. Park. By this, I mean park your ego. Propel. By this, I mean propel your creativity. Persist. By this, I mean persist when it's not fun, because it does stop being fun after a while. And number 5, purpose. Purpose and repurpose content for different things. So let me just give you an example from the last 5 minutes. We were having a chat before we opened this meeting about what different phrases mean in different countries. Angela, who now lives in KL, has been to South Africa. Dr. Damini has been to South Africa. So they know that in South Africa, if you say just now, it doesn't mean now. It means maybe not at all. Dr. Damini told us that in 2 minutes in India does not mean in 2 minutes. And I can't remember who said it, but it wasn't too long ago. I think maybe E.T. said, when you say on the way, or maybe it was Angela as well, on the way in Malaysia means later. I'm getting ready, but I'm not there yet, and I may not be there for quite some time. So what did I do when I heard this? I wrote a little note with this on it, and at the top it says article content, ? So I'm always doing this. And that's what I mean by an article. It's a nugget. It is by no means necessarily a 1,200 word long form document or a 5,000 word white paper. I may write a 200 character post on this, or a 200 word mini article, or an 800 word opinion piece. But I'm looking for fodder all the time, and I'm finding it everywhere. I am going to give all of you a cheat sheet. I'm very big on resources. So I'm going to give you a cheat sheet just so that you know what it looks like. It looks like this. It tells you what to do before you write an article. You can answer those questions on the left and you can use them to flesh out the article. So I will make this available to you as a download afterwards. And I will also give you a checklist, which looks like this. And this is for after you've written an article. You can answer these questions to check whether it's ready to release or not. So I'll make both of those available as downloads by the end, but you can look out for the cheat sheet and the checklist. So let's look at item one of my 5 tips, which was push value, not self-promotion. Your audience is not there to be sold to. They're not even there to be impressed. They are there purely to access a nugget that can make their lives better and easier. Now, the important thing is that what you consider news and what's really interesting to your reader are 2 different things. You need to give them information that they can really get their teeth into and use. Every article you write, and remember when I say article, it might be a tiny article or a big article, should be relentlessly value adding because this makes readers more likely to reach out for paid engagements. Mandy, you so eloquently said earlier that the connection between selling and speaking is connection. The minute you share value with a reader, you've created a connection with them and they are much more likely to buy from you later. If there's no connection, there's no sale. But the problem is that the meaning of value has changed over time. Because we are so saturated with messaging wherever we go, readers have become more skeptical, more discerning, more distracted. They crave authenticity, uniqueness. They love personal content. They like content that tells a story or that shows vulnerability or that provides a fresh perspective. So just to return to the teeth analogy again, it's important that you give your audience something to chew on. Now, you can't just give them information. Information's not enough. They can get it anywhere. They can Google it. They can use ChatGPT. They can get information much more quickly than you can write anything. So don't bother just using your articles to inform. My advice is use them to advise, to suggest, to direct, to guide, or to explain. You are a speaker already, so you have a lot that you can use to produce a piece of writing that can do these things. When you are doing this, I want you to try and strive to hit 4 notes. Have I provided insights? Are the insights I've provided usable? Are they relevant to this audience and are they timely? Is it something they can or should use soon? And I often get a question when I give this talk, but Tiffany, how can we give away our IP as speakers? Why should we give away our best stuff in articles? Well, my answer is give away your knowledge so that you can sell your expertise. I don't reserve or gatekeep my best stuff for paying clients. I give good stuff to everyone all the time, and I get more work than I can possibly do. The other thing is that your content should be actionable. It should enable them or equip them or empower them to do something differently or better than they did before. And finally, if you're going to go to the trouble of creating content that markets you as a speaker, every article should link implicitly or explicitly to a core theme that you speak about, because this will appeal to decision makers who can hire you. So let me give you an example. I often speak about writing using AI. One of easily my biggest seller at the moment, keynote, is on how to prompt AI so that the output sounds more like you. So it's called Talk to AI so it talks like you. Easily my biggest seller at the moment. So I often share articles and content around AI prompting. And what this does is it positions me as an expert in the field. It doesn't tell people that I'm an expert. It shows them and it gives them some of my best stuff. So another example, one of my popular keynotes is coming up with creative ideas. So I will often give examples of how to do that in articles or in posts. Another one of my popular talks is on low effort social media marketing. So I call that bare bones social media. And I will often give insights from that talk in articles. And what this does is It ensures that my articles either fit into the key themes that I speak about or are adjacent to the themes that I speak about. Now, why do I say adjacent? Because you may not only want to speak about your niche, you may want to speak about things that are similar to your niche. So I'll give you another example. I will often speak about customer experience and customer service. I don't work in that field, but a lot of the work that I do is used in that field. So it makes sense for me to write articles adjacent to my own theme and the theme of CX. And of course, when you do that, you have to have your primary target market in mind. So for me, it's corporate training managers, heads of learning and development, event producers, and conference organizers. So those are the people that I target when I write about AI, bare bones social media, coming up with creative ideas. And here's a little tip for you before we end off with this first nugget. 1 in 4 articles should reference what you sell, offer, or provide. Only 1 in 4. The other 3 should be sharing actual value. So 20%, well, not 1 in 4 is 25%. Only 25% of your content should be promotional. The rest should be not promotional. The rest should be purely advisory and value adding. And then your audience doesn't feel sold to. So that was tip number 1. Tip number 2 is park your ego. Now, one of the reasons we become speakers is because we like the sound of our own voices. I'm guilty of this myself. The problem is that I want you to start using you in your articles more than I. So avoid the excessive use of I and even we, which are first person pronouns. I want you to use you, which is a second person pronoun. Why? Because when you start a sentence with you are more likely to craft reader-centric content that begins with the audience's agenda and not your own. So it forces you to create reader-centric, value-adding, relevant, actionable content. Another thing that I'd like you to do when you are writing articles is resist the urge to prove yourself at the start of every post or piece. Don't include a self-edifying intro or little breadcrumbs of humble bragging. You want to demo that you're an authority. You don't actually want to say that you're an authority, which is why I let Mandy introduce me and didn't introduce myself, because what I think of me is irrelevant. Remember that every article is an audition, not a sales pitch. You are not selling, you are auditioning. You are showing, not telling. Now, you are all experts in something. Many of you are veteran, experienced speakers, which means you know a lot of things. But please don't share all those things with your readers. They only need 10 to 20% of what you know in order to make a change. The biggest mistake that I think new speakers make, and if you are a sort of an early to the market speaker, the biggest mistake that I see new speakers make is trying to tell the audience everything you know about a topic when they only need the 10 to 20% nugget that can help them to change. Aim for content that is easy, smooth, and simple to assimilate, that is conversational, which means it's narrative driven and human, but also that engages readers in a dialogue. And don't try to mask low editorial self-esteem with big words. So if you are new to the writing process, or at least not new to writing, but new to publishing your writing, you may feel imposter syndrome or a lack of confidence and then sort of want to infuse your writing with big words, long words, overly elaborate language. Please don't do that. You're not fooling anyone, firstly. Secondly, we want to hear your actual voice in the writing. We want to hear what you sound like when you speak. And the audience always wants to read less than you are tempted to write. So less really is more in this instance. And I encourage you to keep it tight. A short, tight post is so much better than a wordy, complex post. And then a final tip before we move on to the next nugget is done really is better than perfect. Please press publish before you are ready or before you feel ready. In most article writing, getting it out there is better than fiddling and fiddling and fiddling and fiddling and having a crisis of confidence and leaving it in drafts and never publishing it. Angela's laughing. She obviously identifies with this. I myself am a paid writer. I get paid to write, and I've done this for 10 hours a day for 20 years, and I will still agonize over a piece of copy to make it perfect when I should have shipped the thing at 30%. I should not have shipped it at 95% because now it's a week that has passed, and I could have been using that content marketing in that week. Tip or nugget number 3, propel your creativity. So this comes from one of my talks on creativity. There are some things that you will see all over the internet. And they are usually articles containing quotes from famous people, articles that have maritime or musical metaphors, because ChatGPT loves those, articles that begin with the phrase research shows, or articles that are so flowery and fluffy that they should be Valentine's Day gifts. These articles usually have the same stale structure. They are superficially cheerful, so they sound very gung-ho and rah-rah and certainly and yay and are very irritating. And because so many of them are created by AI, they have this weird generic sameness. So they all sort of sound like what I call beige mush. Now, I love AI, don't get me wrong. AI is the most valuable thinking partner I have had in years. And in the Q&A, if you want to ask me about this, you can ask me for specifics on how I use AI as a thinking partner. But unfortunately, AI is also excellent at creating beige mush. It is hard at the moment to get AI to generate anything truly nuanced, unless you are a prompt writing genius, which of course I like to think I am. And of course, that is my other keynote. But here's a disclaimer. I'm a professional writer, right? So I have great confidence in my ability to write. If you find writing scary or uncomfortable, and you are never going to write anything ever, I am begging you to use AI to help you. Please, please use AI. Writing using AI is better than not writing at all. So if you are scared or intimidated, just use AI. It will make your life so much easier. But this is only a short-term solution, because AI-generated content will not help you stand out. It will help you stand on the platform with everyone else, but you will not stand out until you start writing yourself. So start with AI. It's the most wonderful training bicycle. Remember that if you want to capture and sustain attention over time, once you've got comfortable using AI, your content must break the mold. You must take chances. You must be specific. What do I mean? That I often tell a story about my first visit to India. I went to speak at the the PSAI convention in 2020, last year, 2024 or 2023, I can't remember, 2023 or 2024. I spoke in India at the PSAI convention. And the night before my talk, I ate a green bean, but it wasn't a green bean, it was a chili, and I ate the whole thing at a very I was at the table with the former Minister of Indian Intelligence, and I ate the chili whole, and I had steam coming out my nose and tears running down my face, and my lips swelled up. I looked like a Kardashian. It was one of the most embarrassing things that has ever happened to me in my life. And I tell the story often because no quote from a baseball player is better than the random story of me eating the chili at the Indian convention in front of all these really high profile people, and me with tears and snot and my tongue on fire. So I tell that story a lot, and it's more interesting than quoting, an American basketball guru or, some random guy. The other thing is that no cliche will ever be as strong as a surprising story or surprising connection between two unrelated things. So now we go to my very favorite example of this. And that is the example of the dentist. Let me ask you, as a speaker, you can indicate with a show of hands, have you ever been able to eat exposure? So you spoke for free. They promised that you would get exposure. Have you ever been able to eat that or take it to the grocery store and feed your children using exposure? Does that work for you? Hands up if it does. Nobody. It doesn't work for anyone, right? Now, you've all heard this line before about not being able to eat exposure. But what if we recreate it in a surprising way using something totally random like a dentist? What if we wrote an article comparing speakers to dentists? And there is me, little cartoon me, dressed as a dentist. So that's me with my gray hair and my pink dress. And here is me with my mask on, holding whatever that thing is. Dr. Dominique can tell us afterwards because she was a dentist. But there is me dressed as a dentist. Now, I'm going to compare being a speaker to being a dentist. You ready? I'm a professional speaker. You cannot contract me to clean your teeth and then change the scope, i.e., put braces on for the same price. Okay? Teeth cleaning and braces are different. I'm a professional speaker. You cannot pay me for my services in apples or chewing gum or knock-knock jokes about teeth. I'm a professional speaker. You can't get cold teeth halfway through the cleaning and then leave without paying. Now, did you see what I did there? I took professional speaking and being offered exposure and dentistry, and I showed why what works for dentists works for speakers. Now, some of you, Vikram, were with me in Bali in September 2024, at which I used this example on stage. So I was standing at the GSS Summit, the Global Speaker Summit in Bali, and I used this example of the dentist. I had never used it before. And at the end of my presentation, this incredible woman came up to me in the lobby outside, and she said, I am a dentist and a speaker. And it blew my mind. It blew my mind that the one and only time I ever used this parallel on stage, there was a woman in the audience who was a dentist and a speaker. It was like the most magnificent providence that could happen in the world. And do you want to hear the second most magnificent providence that could happen in the world? That woman is your speaker after me. Dr. Damini Chavla will be speaking as soon as I'm done, and she will be telling us about humor. And she is the woman who came up to me at the end of my presentation. So, I mean, could this be better? No, it could not. That is delicious. Do you agree? Delicious. So, no piece of writing will ever be as compelling as a piece of writing that is offered in your own voice, your imperfect, flawed human voice. That's why you have to tell real stories, like the story of Dr. Damini coming up to me. And it was, as we were saying earlier to ET, it was love at first sight. We made friends, and that was it. We just knew that we were kindred souls. And tonight you are hearing from both of us. One more thing before we move on to the next tip. To generate the best creative ideas, you must get better at noticing the things around you. Novel stimuli, strange ideas, unfamiliar ideologies, interesting people, cultural nuances, literature, music, food, all the things that are out of your usual comfort zone. That chili in India was one of the best things that ever happened to my speaking career, even though at the time it was very traumatic for me. The chat that I had with Angela and E.T. and Dr. Damini before this call started about just now and in a minute and on my way. Those are cultural nuances that I didn't realize had equivalents in India and Malaysia. That's the kind of place you get creative ideas, when you notice the things around you. Next up, second last, number 4 of 5. Persist when it's not fun. Why? Because it will stop being fun. Do I want to create articles and posts and content when I could be charging people for those? No, I want to be charging, not doing it for free. But it's not for free because it brings me the paid work. So it makes sense for me to persist and persist and persist, even if I don't feel like writing content. You need to find out where your target audience hangs out. Are they on LinkedIn? Now, I'm a B2B copywriter, so I specialize in business to business writing. So I write about companies, and the companies are usually professional services, associations, educational institutions, banks, wealth managers, investment houses, insurance companies, and healthcare entities. And so they are on LinkedIn. They are not hanging out on Instagram or TikTok. The kind of people who are willing to pay me are on LinkedIn. So you need to work out, where is your target audience hanging out? Are there industry-specific platforms? Is it Facebook? You want it to seem like you're everywhere, or everywhere your target audience is, but not actually be everywhere. And this is how you achieve top of mind awareness. It helps keep you top of mind with prospects. It creates a continuous cycle of interest and interaction. It builds improved visibility as an expert thought leader, and it gives the search engines and now the AI platforms more of what they need to send you eyes. In other words, to send you inquiries. And remember, when it's no longer fun, and it will stop being fun, you have to rely on discipline. So I'm often asked, how do I stay motivated to write content and market all the time? I'm not motivated. It's not motivation, it's habit. I don't do it because I feel like it. I do it because that's how I get paid gigs. The best advice I can give you is to design a schedule you can live with, a schedule that makes writing and publishing part of your week, as if it were a paid appointment with a paying client. And then one more little tip before we move on to the final nugget, and that is that when you've published enough content over time, and not a long time, you'll have the data you need to analyze performance and then work out what really resonates with your audience so you can put more of your focus there in future. Finally, last one, purpose and repurpose. What I mean here is I want you to take every piece of content you create and squeeze the juice out of it by repurposing it. I want you to turn every piece of writing you create into a multi-format content stream. Because when you do this, you can distribute your messages more widely and you can get more bang for the time and effort you invested. So let me go back to my favorite example of the dentist. Let's say that I write an 800-word article that compares speakers to dentists. And let's say that I put it on LinkedIn Pulse, or that I publish it on the VSAI, the Virtual Speakers Association International website. Let's say that I put it there. It's 800 words. Now, what do I mean by multi-format and squeezing the juice and repurposing? I can take that 800-word article and make 4 or 5 little posts out of it. I can create a poll. I can create a YouTube short, an Instagram reel, an infographic, not my strength area, but, I could. I can make it into a newsletter. I can create a carousel, a TikTok video. I can reference it in a podcast or even use it in an interview. Now, my goal and your goal should be to derive 4 to 5 freestanding bits from every long form article you produce. Now, the bit can be tiny. It can be 8 words or 100 words, but it should always add a small piece of value or share something to think about or try to make the reader feel seen. And at the end, you can include a clear call to action that invites a speaking booking, a consultation, or even a casual chat. Now, does anyone remember how many of your content bits can have self-promotion in them? I said a certain number out of 4. I'm just going to go back into the chat. How many out of 4 can be self-promoting?
1 out of 4.
1 out of 4, correct. Thank you. 1 out of 4. That is right. So 1 out of 4 of your posts should have a clear call to action that invites either a speaking booking, a consultation, or a chat. And if you don't want to do a call to action, if that's just not your vibe, remember that in addition to call to action, which is your CTA, you can also have a CTF, call to feel, a CTT, call to think, or just a CTC, call to comment. It doesn't always have to be action. It can be CTF, CTT, CTC. And if there's space in your post at the top, you can use an attention-grabbing call-out, like, are you vegetarian? Or calling all moms, or learning and development directors, I have something for you. That's a call-out. It's when you identify your target audience right at the beginning. So we've covered how to turn your words into more work. Here's the final nudge. There's one final nudge, and I hope this is powerful enough to really keep you going. If you don't produce content on your speaking themes, someone else will. They'll either do it better than you and get work you should be getting, or they'll do it worse than you and get work you should be getting. So regardless, you need to embrace the minor discomfort of creating content, because any piece of content is more than none. So if you're currently doing none, 1 a week is something. If you're currently posting twice a week, 4 times a week is better. And if you're me, I post every single day. I should probably stop, because I don't think anyone wants to hear from me every day. But if you do, you will find me on LinkedIn and on every other social media platform that exists. And if you want the slides, which I am assuming you do, and if you want the cheat sheet and the checklist, there is a QR code right here. You just click on that QR code. It will open Speaker Score. You'll have to tell Speaker Score what you thought of me. And then you will get the PDF of the 95 slides that I've just presented to you, and the cheat sheet and checklist PDF. And those will be available to you. And I'm going to leave this up just for a few minutes, and I think we can probably now take questions. We're still a small group, 16, so I think maybe if you have a question, just raise your hand or unmute, but I'm here for that for the next little while.
Tiffany, I have a question.
Yes.
On the repurpose of the content, so where do you go? What platform, what channel do you do your repurpose that you focus beside LinkedIn?
I use most platforms for different things. So LinkedIn is what I call my hero platform because I'm B2B and my B2B clients are there. So LinkedIn gets the best content that I create first. And then I will often repurpose a LinkedIn article into a series of posts, which I will put on I have a business Facebook page, so I will put them there. I have a business LinkedIn page, so I will put them there. I have a Google profile, so I will put them there. I have a column on Medium and a column on a South African marketing website, so I will often share them there. Um, but LinkedIn gets the first bite of the apple because that's my hero platform. And what I will sometimes do just to test a piece of content is I will share it with my newsletter community first. So there are 3,000 odd people signed up for my newsletter, and I will often test a piece of content with that audience to see if it's valuable to them, and then it will go LinkedIn and then all the others. But LinkedIn is very much my primary focus. Another thing is that you can repurpose old content. So let's say I write an article on brand voice. Um, I'll publish it on LinkedIn, and then 6 months later, I'll chop it into 4 nuggets and post those on LinkedIn again with the link to the original. So you can repurpose on the same platform once enough time has passed. I also sometimes repurpose posts at in different time zones. So I'll do 4 p.m. South African time and then 4 a.m. South African time sometimes. Does that answer your question, Mandy?
Yes, thank you. I don't hear anything about video content.
Sorry?
What about video content?
Video content. I find it very hard to go from written content to video. So I will often do video first and then create written content off video content. So I don't like to go the other way around. A lot of people will write something and then create a video out of it. They'll use their writing as a script. I like to go the other way around. So otherwise I get too stiff. So I'll use video content first and then I'll create writing out of a transcript or out of my show notes. And for video, I have a YouTube channel. And I will occasionally do TikTok, but as I said, TikTok is not a big one for me because my audience doesn't really hang out there. But YouTube is a good one for me, so I will do video. I don't like being on video, so I don't do video a lot. It's not a comfort zone for me. I really prefer communicating and writing. Thank you. Good questions, both. Vikram, we've got
Wait.
a few raised hands.
Let Juliana go first.
Okay, Juliana.
Sure. Thank you, Vikram. Hey, Tiffany. Thanks for the insights. I found them really useful. My question is really around the readership that we have today, because I hear a lot about people scrolling past articles. They don't read so much. So how do you balance? I just want to know the tips from you. How would you balance getting your message across, keeping with the 1/4 for selling versus, with the three and a half as three-fourth as information, and ensuring that your readers don't snooze midway through your article. So how do you find that balance between all these? Thanks.
That is a great question. So I think what you're asking me is how do you stop the scroll? How do you stop them just going? And once you've got them, how do you keep them? Is that right? Okay. So the best way to stop the scroll is to start, your opening line is everything. It used to be the first 30 words, used to be the most important. Now it's the first 8 words. So the first 8 words have got to be interesting, unusual, value-adding, quirky, conversational. That it lives or dies with the first 8 words. So my advice is write the thing and then delete your first sentence and rewrite it until it's really good. Because your first sentence is usually, mine is usually weak. It was a warm-up for the rest of my thinking. It's never great. So if I get into the habit of deleting my first sentence and starting again and saying, right, I have 8 words. What 8 words are going to get people to read this? So remember that it's not the first 30, it's the first 8, and you should write it last. So that's one of the ways you can stop the scroll. Images are also a good way to stop the scroll. Bizarrely and frustratingly, readers love unflattering selfies that we take of ourselves. So when I post anything on LinkedIn with a picture of myself looking awful, that post will do better than a stock image, an AI image, or a picture of me looking nice. I don't know why, but when I get desperate, I post an unflattering selfie or like a weird photo. Yesterday, I posted a photo of my diary. So this is my diary. I'm trying to put it next to my face so you can see it. But no, I've got blur on. Let me turn my blur off. Yesterday, I posted a picture of my diary, because I was talking about getting my whole to-do list done. Now, it's a mess. I don't really want anyone looking at that, but it went bananas because it was my actual diary. So that's how you stop the scroll. And then your second question was, how do you get them to read past the beginning? You've got to use teasers. But wait, there's more. And here's another thing. And but what about the opposite? Or here's what you don't know. Or what comes next? So questions, ellipsis, dots, teasers, all the stuff that keeps people watching a movie trailer. In a world where that stuff gets them to read all the way to the bottom. Does that help you?
Absolutely. Thanks a lot.
Such a pleasure. Thank you. Vikram.
Hey, thanks, Tiffany. Some great insights. My question is, I love writing as much as I love speaking. But then, as I have been writing and posting all this while, I'm being quite vulnerable right now, is I like what I write, but at times it gets the audience. At times the algorithm doesn't get the audience. You spoke about the picture. As much as I've started using very recently AI, so I went into the AI space and I literally wrote what I wanted to write and I put it up on AI. And obviously, it looks much more neater. It is much more crisper. It is much more better. But then I'm not able to process the fact that the AI version is, although a better version, it is not me. You know what I mean? It's not my core essence of what I wanted to really write, even though it showcases the same. So how does that a person manage that beige mush, if you rightly said? Because I'm at that conflict in my head of I really want to put out there what I feel, which is good enough. But the moment I put it up on AI and see what comes as an outcome, I'm like, wow, this is awesome. So,
Okay, so this is a brilliant question, and I was hoping somebody would ask me this. So thank you for asking me. I love this question. The answer is, I'm going to take my time explaining this because it's very important. We feel tempted when we put our stuff into AI, even if we are confident writers. We feel tempted by the AI version because it's cleaner, right? But is cleaner better? Not really. If you are a confident writer who enjoys writing, I urge you to resist the temptation to let AI dilute your voice by making it cleaner. But here's what you do instead. You use AI not as a writing partner, but as a thinking partner. So you paste your article into the platform, and it doesn't have to be ChatGPT, it can be any platform. You paste it into the platform and you say, I have written this article without changing anything. I want you to notify me in a bulleted list or in a table of any grammatical, punctuation, spelling, whatever issues. I want you to flag any potential red flags, compliance issues, sensitivities, da 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 da. I want you to suggest possible gaps in my thinking. So what have I said here that might yield something that I've not thought about because of my own inherent biases? I want you to point out places where I may have repeated myself. I want you to suggest examples that might not be as strong as they should be. So you tell the platform not to change your text, but you tell it to craft you a bulleted list of ways to improve it. And then you go through and you decide what you agree with and what you disagree with. That is how you maintain your own voice. Otherwise, you land up writing a diluted, cleaner piece of Vikram that isn't Vikram and that is beige. And beige is not good for your brand. Another thing, when there are little errors in our writing, like the odd spelling thing or a tiny little grammar thing, it looks like a human wrote it. So it's believable. And there is value in that. I have now started to use bad habits in my writing. I use and in a sentence because AI doesn't do that. I don't use em dashes, but I never did before. I don't use the rule of 3 anymore, which is active, decisive, and whatever, because AI always uses 3. So I use hyper local examples, very South African examples, lots of vernacular, lots of Afrikaans. Sometimes I'll put isiZulu in, or I'll talk about, being 44 and having gray hair and being a mom. And why do I do that? To hyper localize and authenticate the fact that it's human generated, not AI assisted. So those are just some things that you can do. But please resist the temptation to make it beige.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks. And I loved call to action, because call to feel is much better. I really love that, because again, I'm not a great believer in, posting something and then asking somehow, whether it's directly or indirectly, asking people, now you connect with me on this for this. No, I don't want that. But I really love the call to feel. I think that's a good one.
Yeah, call to feel is a really good one. And it's easier for people to feel something than to comment even. So call to feel and call to think are much easier than asking call to comment or call to act. So you can make the homework for them less, and then they're more likely to engage. Any other
Thanks.
questions? But I think I might be over time, Mandy. I think 40 minutes was my limit. Or was it 45? I can't remember.
Yep, that's right.
Okay.
Do we
So-
have any other question?
I will gladly take one last question if there is. If you are shy, which I hope you're not because you're all professional speakers, you can email me your question, tiffany@tiffanymarkman.co.za, or just Google me, you'll find me. And you can download the files, which I hope that you've done. But you can reach out to me at any point with questions. It doesn't have to be after this talk. It can be at any point in the future. I do not cease to exist when I'm not in this little box. I'm still there and I'm still able to answer questions. So please don't be shy to hit me up with questions in future.